Good afternoon. My name is Scott Hicks. I'm Director of the Teaching and Learning Center at UNC Pembroke. Today's session, I'm happy to be joined by Terry Locklear and Kristen Purvis from the Office of Online Learning. Our topic today is stress and anxiety-free classroom as part of our spring semester series focused on resilient pedagogies. So to all of us here, thank you for joining us. We're happy to be here. We're going to begin with some overview of what stress and anxiety-free classrooms might look like, take part in a guided meditation, and then we are going to turn it over to Terry and Kristen for some tips on lowering the stress and anxiety in online classrooms. So let's get started. I want to start by reading from a letter to a young teacher by Thich Nhat Hanh from the book Happy Teachers Change the World, A Guide to Cultivating Mindfulness in Education. There's an enormous amount of suffering in young people, and this makes the work of teaching a lot more difficult. We ourselves as teachers have difficulties too. We try our very best, but the environment, our family, and the colleagues we work with have a lot of suffering in them. If we as teachers, along with our colleagues, are not happy, how can we expect the children to be happy? This is a very important question. We may not yet have enough patience, understanding, freshness, or compassion to be able to confront all this suffering. There is a certain spiritual dimension we need to help us transform and to begin to help the people around us, our family members, our partner, and then others to transform. If we succeed in this practice, we become more pleasant and more compassionate. Thich Nhat Hanh gives us 7 steps to transformation. I'm just going to read through the 7 steps here, but if you'd like a copy of the fully explained and actualized description of each step, please email me after this presentation and I will be happy to send it to you. Step 1 to transformation. We must bring our mind back to our body and come back to ourselves. Step 2. The practice of mindfulness is an art of living. Step 3. Stop running so that we can recognize the conditions of happiness we have now. Step 4. Listen deeply and speak lovingly. Step 5. Practice and hone the art of handling happiness and suffering, somehow balancing them. Step 6. Practice sharing joy, happiness, and peace, as interbeing means we cannot be by ourselves alone, but interbe, interconnect, interrelate with everything else. And finally, step 7, create a small community of happy teachers and together create change. Again, after this webinar, if you'd like to see full descriptions of these steps so that you can put these steps into practice into your own life, please email me and I'll be happy to send it to you. At this time, we're going to bring our minds back to our bodies through a brief 6-minute meditation. This meditation comes from Beth Barilla, who is a scholar of mindful and contemplative education. And this meditation comes from a book that was used in a TLC book study earlier this semester, Integrating Mindfulness into Education for Social Justice. So during this meditation, you may turn off your camera. I'm going to leave my sound going so that you can hear the meditation and practice as you are where you are.
For this mindfulness check-in, find a quiet place where you can sit with minimal distraction for 5 to 7 minutes. Dim the lights, light a candle if you can, turn off the music, silence your cell phone, and minimize any other noises. And take a good seat. You might want to sit up on some blankets or a cushion so that your pelvis tilts slightly forward and your knees angle down a bit. Alternatively, you can sit on a chair, making sure that your feet are flat on the ground and only your lower spine is resting against the back of the chair. Your palms can be open or closed, resting gently on your upper thighs or knees. You can softly close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or if you'd prefer, gently focus your gaze a few feet ahead of you on the floor and soften your peripheral vision. Take a few deep breaths. Feel the breath move all the way through your lungs and into your belly as you inhale, and exhale from your belly through your lungs and out your mouth. As you breathe 3 or 4 times, imagine your breath wiping away all the thoughts of the day and bringing your attention to the here and the now. Now let your breath return to normal. Once you feel fairly present, turn your attention inward and do a check-in. What are you feeling right now? And how do you know that's what you're feeling? Can you detect the emotions that are swirling through you? Do you notice worry, excitement, anger, joy, fear? Whatever it is, just allow it to be without judgment. Try to be curious. Where do you notice the emotions in your body? Do they rest in your heart, your head? Is there tension in your shoulders? A fluttering in your belly? See if you can find them in your body. Do they have a color or a texture? Are they cool and blue or fiery and rough? Try to familiarize yourself with your emotions and how your body holds them. Most importantly, try not to judge them. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel. At this point, we're just trying to recognize them. We'll work more with them later. If you find yourself thinking about the content of the feelings or the stories behind them, try not to get too caught up in that. Just notice the thoughts and let them go by like a leaf floating on river. Take note of the emotion behind the thought and then just let it pass. As we move toward the close of our meditation, take 4 to 5 deep cleansing breaths. With each breath, gradually move your attention back outward, maybe gently inviting some movement back into your fingers and toes. Take in the sounds around you. If your eyes were closed, maybe gently open them. And reflect on what you noticed in this mindful check-in.
Thank you for taking part in this mindfulness check-in. As you may see from bethbarilla.com, there are other options for you. If you wish to use these in class or use these in your professional practice, they're wonderful resources. Again, for your own copy of Thich Nhat Hanh's Letter to a Young Teacher with each step fully actualized and explained, please email me at scott.hicks@uncp.edu. I'll be happy to send you a copy of this chapter. Again, for more guided meditations for personal and classroom use, visit bethbarilla.com. And last, before I turn it over to Kristen and Terry, I'd like to leave you with something to help you think about what higher education will look like after or during COVID-19 as we begin to return to campus, we hope in fall 2021. For a call to action for a post-pandemic higher education of care and concern for all, I'd invite you to watch Joshua Eiler's keynote address on grief and loss, building a post-pandemic future for higher ed without losing sight of our students and ourselves. Much of what it means to be in a classroom that's free of anxiety and stress means that we take care of ourselves and we take care of each other. And his is a wonderful address to think through how we might do that work together. So thank you. Kristen and Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. That was a good exercise. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Get this. Nope. Okay. Today, me and Terry are going to go over 10 ways to reduce anxiety in online students. I'm going to go over numbers 1 through 5, and then Terry's going to do numbers 6 through 10. So the first thing you want to do is you can include a Start Here section in your online course. This will provide an overview of the course. You can include things like major points from the syllabus, the technology requirements and types of assignments that you'll be expecting your students to do. And you can orient them to the course layout. For example, tell them if there's going to be weekly discussions, if there's essays every 4 weeks, things like that. You can also include some tips for navigating the course, such as if you do a weekly overview document, you can tell them that on Monday for each week's module, they can look at that to start the week and look at the upcoming assignments for that week. And then as a bonus tip for this one, I said it would be a good idea to include a low stakes activity. This could be something like a quiz on the syllabus, or the students making an introduction video of themselves. And if you make those assignments worth points, it helps bolster their confidence and that they're able to complete their online courses successfully. Number 2 is communicate regularly with your students, and you can start by introducing yourself. For asynchronous online classes, you can do this with a video upload. So you can make that in QuickTime or with Camtasia or whatever video recording software you prefer to use, and then just upload it into the Start Here section that we just covered. And if you have synchronous class sessions, you could do it live like we're doing right now, where you just turn on your camera and introduce yourself to the class. You could even take turns going around, calling on students and getting them to introduce themselves, and make sure that your webcam is turned on for that. It helps build a sense of community when you have your camera on. And even if you're not having the live meetings, if you do a video introduction rather than just typing an introduction, it helps them put a face with the name, and it helps them feel more immersed in their class. You can also utilize the announcements function in Canvas, and you can send updates about upcoming due dates, extracurricular events, or anything relevant to the class. Even if there's like a news article that's dealing with something that you're covering in the class, you could send an announcement about that. Or if you prefer to send emails, that's fine as well. It's just important to keep an open line of communication with your students since they're never going to see you in person. It's also a good way to set your expectations and let your students know how you prefer to communicate with them, whether it's through email or phone calls, or what hours those might be, and how quickly they can expect a response from you. That ties into number 3, set clear expectations and use predictable formatting throughout your course. It's important in every class you teach, but especially in online classes, not to leave any room for interpretation. An example that I made for this is you should say something like assignments are due at 11:59 p.m. on Sundays instead of assignments are due at the end of the week, because someone might think that's Friday, but to you it's Sunday since the week starts on Monday. So just be very specific with deadlines especially, and using rubrics helps a lot too, so they know what you're looking for in the assignments. And Canvas has a tool built in for those. So it's directly in the assignment and it helps you when it comes time to grade the assignments as well. You can also include a week-by-week schedule in the syllabus and then match it exactly to your course modules. So having that consistency between the syllabus and the course really helps them stay on track with everything. You can also include action words for each module element. I've seen this in some online Canvas courses that I've been reviewing lately, where if it's an article, they'll put read and then the name of the article, or discuss and then give the topic. So the students have those action words to know exactly what's expected of them before they even click on the link. And it helps them figure out too if they have enough time to dedicate to that particular assignment just at a glance while they're on their computer right then. Number 4 is prominently display your contact info and the contact info for student resources. Since many online students never have and never will be on campus, they're not familiar with the different services that UNCP offers. So when you have your contact info listed, it should not only include tech support, but also things like student success, financial aid, counseling, and the Office of the Accessibility Resource Center. You can include this information in the syllabus and at the top of the course homepage. You can also put it in the Start Here section. It can't hurt to have it too many places because you don't want them to feel like they have to hunt for it. If it's on a bunch of different pages, then all the better. You can include your email address, phone number, office hours, and whether that's virtual or if you're in person and on campus now and then, you can put those as well. And then if you have your link for your Zoom personal meeting room, you can include that as well if that's where you intend to hold your online office hours. And then my last one, number 5, is provide alternate methods of learning the lesson. For example, if you use videos in your class to teach some of your lessons, you could make it an option to watch the video or read the transcript from the video. And I know that some videos don't automatically come with transcripts, and some students, they might not utilize it. Most of them are probably going to prefer to just watch the video. So if it requires quite a bit of extra effort on your part, you can just include a note on that video posting that says video transcript is available upon request. And then they know that it's an option if that's what they need. And the reason we like to give them these options is because some students might not have the resources or ability to watch a video. They could have temporary or permanent impairment of various senses, such as hearing loss, color blindness, etc. And if students are completing classwork in a busy, noisy area, like if they like to go to Starbucks to work on homework, they would benefit more from reading a transcript instead of watching a video or trying to listen to a podcast. So now we are on number 6. So I'll turn that over to Terry. Stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Wonderful job. Hold on one second here, and I'll go ahead and share my screen as well. Hope everyone is having a good day today. Okay. So my first tip for creating this environment that we're going for here in the online space is to actually be mindful of breaks. We want to make sure that you give your students plenty of time for breaks in terms of the way that you schedule assignments. So it's it's always a good practice, excuse me, to schedule your assignments in such a way that students are going to be less overwhelmed in terms of when those assignments appear. The last thing you want to do as an online professor is to pile on numerous assignments at the same time on your students. And also another good practice is to be aware of how you make content available to students. I've saw online courses where the professors just open the entire course up to students at the beginning. So imagine you're taking a 16-week course, and when you open the course the first day, you have access to 16 weeks worth of content, right from the beginning of class. In some classes, in some areas or some course levels, that may be that may be okay. I think having that sort of practice really depends on your discipline. I think it depends on your student population and course level. Something like that or that sort of organization may be okay for a graduate course, and it may be okay for a course that doesn't require students to participate in discussion. If you have a course in which you're requiring students to participate in discussions, I would be careful about opening up content too far ahead, because what happens is some students are going to be working ahead, and they may be 3 or 4 weeks, ahead of the rest of the class. And then they'll have to actually come back to respond or to participate effectively in those discussions. So that's one of the things you want to be mindful of in terms of giving students access to content. Doing so may be overwhelming to some. Also, really consider the ways in which you have your formative assessments. Formative assessments can give students multiple opportunities to succeed. So there's a difference in a formative and a summative assessment. A summative assessment is typically like a final exam, which is a sort of an assessment that summarizes the entire course, a course level assessment. So you don't want to have only 1 or 2 high stakes assessments in your course. You want to provide some sort of formative assessments along the way to kind of let students know where they stand. That can definitely reduce anxiety. Provide students with example of quality work also, so they can have something to compare their work to, and they can self-identify if there's any gaps. So it's a good practice to whenever you're assigning, when you're giving assignments to, this also depends on the course level and discipline. So there's always some nuance. If you're teaching maybe a lower level general ed class, it may be a good idea to provide students with examples of exemplary work, so they'll kind of know what to expect. And doing so really empowers students with the ability to identify quality work, and then they'll actually be able to do their own assessment. They'll be able to identify what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and kind of be able to identify what you're looking for. Tip number 6 is identify students with poor performance. So if you can kind of do that early, anxiety in an online course can result in poor performance as well. Letting know the students about the ways in which they can improve their performance and how to use your assistance and other resources can help with their level of anxiety. So go ahead and try to identify them early, and send them a message, send them an email, and let them know that where they stand, and ask, is there anything I can help with, and provide that sort of assistance. And that's sort of a way of that's sort of a formative type assessment, or a formative exercise as well. And quite simply, for number 9 is know how it went from 6 to 9. I'm sorry, I reordered some things. Is life happens, right? You want to provide deadlines, but you also want to have a little bit of flexibility. It's acceptable that you're going to need deadlines in your course, and you're going to want to make sure that students comply with those. But flexibility in special situations can help students feel less anxious. State your policy if there's any flexibility under special circumstances. That should help students reduce anxiety as well, and communicate those with your students from the outset. I actually took a graduate class a couple of years ago, and the professor essentially, she said at the beginning of the course that each student has like 1 or 2 late assignment coupons or something of that nature, is the way that she worded it. So you could turn 1 or 2 things in late. So that was kind of interesting from the outset. And use a consistent system. I couldn't think of a better way to phrase that here, but system is essentially what I'm calling for. And I think Kristen mentioned this earlier as well. So the way I worded it here on the right is each X should have a consistent schedule. And by X, that can mean week, module, chapter, lesson, unit, whatever system you use for organization, it should be consistent. Okay, because essentially students plan their lives, online students plan their lives around coursework. And if they can know that, okay, each Wednesday I'm going to have an assignment due, or every other Friday I have a quiz or test or whatever. Any way in which you decide to organize that system, make it consistent from the outset, and students will kind of have a outlook in terms of scheduling for their semester from the beginning. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have for this presentation today. But I wanted to make a quick statement about this, and we left this slide here. We made it last for a reason. When we talk about consistency, I wanted to ask you, through this presentation, you had Dr. Hicks first, then you had Kristen second, and then mine was third. And in each of our presentations, there was something a little bit different. Dr. Hicks' presentation was probably, his was, he done it kind of independently, and his was very much different than the template that Kristen and I used. But even with Kristen and I's presentation, so within this same set of slides, you're probably going to notice the design. So Kristen kind of used these stickers and some pictures. So she's got the start here piece there and the bonus at the bottom. And when you get to mine are just kind of kind of the same throughout, using a couple of different icons. But I was wondering, because that sort of goes along with this idea of consistency. I was wondering if anyone noticed that, and if so, if you noticed that, how did that impact your experience in this presentation? I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, and also just use this time for questions and comments as well. That was sort of a surprise to Dr. Hicks. He didn't know that I was going to throw that out there at the end of the presentation, but I spoke with Kristen about it. I just was wondering if anybody wanted to comment if you noticed.
I think there was a comment in the chat. Lewis Adams wrote, "I noticed, and I'm a big supporter of anything to help me follow along." Thank you, Lewis.
One of the comments, this is David. Thank you, Kristen, Terry, and Scott for that helpful webinar. But one of the things I try to do teaching hybrid is to space out my assignments, open up Canvas, the availability date for some of these assignments in the last couple of weeks of the semester, knowing that my students are really stressed out right now, knowing that they have a final bibliography. I've purposely made my availability and moved it up on Canvas to be just the other day for for the remaining assignments. And I already had a couple students say thank you so much verbally in the class, because these are just little things that we can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so great that you're being flexible to be there for your students.
If no one else has any questions or comments, we appreciate your attendance today and your support. Feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have any additional questions or anything else you'd like to discuss. And thank you so much for attending today. I'm sorry, Dr. Hicks, we missed that.
Have a great semester as you wrap up the semester. Almost there.
Almost there. Thank you so much. Okay. You guys have a wonderful summer if we don't chat before then. Thanks again, and
Thank you.
goodbye.